Hello and welcome to episode number 45 of the Knitting Teaspoon podcast. I'm Liesbeth, your host, and this is a podcast which is all about knitting, sewing, spinning, well, basically whatever craft I feel like. The last week there's been quite a few crafts, but again, not sewing. I haven't been sewing for a while. I think it's that coat that's still kind of on my mind. I probably should go and start sewing something else first to get back into the sewing and then maybe come back to it later. I don't know. If you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, I tried to sew a coat and it has been a bit of a disaster because I was trying to put in a pocket and I don't know, I wasn't able to read the instructions or the instructions were too unclear for me, but it's been a mess and I've been so frustrated with this coat and I've never experienced anything like that with sewing before, so I kind of put off on sewing for a bit. Anyway, let's get into what I have been doing instead of blabbering on about what I have not been doing. So with my blanket finished, there has been some space cleared in my mind that I can fill with other projects again. So I have picked up a lot of old projects. I think none of what I've done you haven't seen before. So first of all, I have a knitting finished object. So I finished the pair of socks for my boyfriend. So in October, my boyfriend went on a holiday with some of his friends and he went to Greece. And he dragged all of his friends along to a yarn shop there to find me some sock yarn there. So I had specified for him what length and weight the yarn should have so that I could make socks for him, and he dragged all his friends along and bought some yarn for me. And this is made from Katja Socks Camel. So it's a sock yarn that is, I believe, 55% wool, 25% nylon and 20% camel. Yeah, and it is a color that he likes. I told him that he should go and fetch something that he would wear socks out of. So here it is. And last week I was already on the second sock and I was about here-ish. But I don't really remember, or actually I would not remember, but I noticed after I put in the heel and knit a little bit on the leg of this sock, so I increase first for a gusset, then I do a short row heel, then knit a heel flap, and I was already knitting in a round again after that bit when I noticed that I had increased a stitch on the top of the foot around where I put in the marker, so I had to go back all the way, rip out the entire heel and knit the sock again because I didn't want the sock to have an extra stitch. It would have shown in the ribbing for sure because it's a 2x2 ribbing, and add one stitch, well, it's not gonna divide by 4 anymore. So yeah, I decided just to rip back and knit it again. So that was a bit of frustration there, but I managed to finish the socks and I actually wove in the ends right away afterwards, so I'm quite happy with that as well. So my boyfriend will have a finished pair of socks, like completely finished and not lingering with the ends unwoven in. Like I told you last week, I'm not a big fan of weaving in ends. But these are woven in and all ready to go. They just need their stitch marker popped off and then my boyfriend can wear them. And he will usually wear them without blocking first. I mean, if I were to give them to someone else who does not live in the same house with me, then I might consider blocking socks or washing them before I give the socks away. But honestly, I feel like people should be happy enough that they receive hand knit socks and should not be bothered by whether or not it's been blocked before it's gifted. So, finished pair of socks, ready to go in my boyfriend's drawer. So that's kind of the second pair of socks of this year, and kind of not because I started them last year So I don't know, I won't count these for a box of socks, which I told you last week that I am trying to get into the box of socks knit along this year, because there's less strict rules about it. Then there's another project that has been lingering a while and that I've picked up again this week, and it is another Dusala cardigan. So last week I believe I was wearing my Dusala cardigan made out of hand spun yarn. Well, this is another Dusala cardigan, but you can obviously see here that there's some texture going on, which you haven't missed last week. It wasn't on the other cardigan. It's actually not in the pattern. I'm just adding some texture, like a full panel on the back, and then 2 full panels like next to the button band, and there will be some minor lace detail, which is also in the full panel, going over the sleeves, because I thought that would be nice. And it's been a bit of a disaster as well, because I picked it up again and I had completely forgotten that the reason that I put it down a few months, I believe ago, like 2 months ago, was that I had to think back a row. So I continued knitting, and then I decided, hey, let's look at the instructions. Like, I remembered the instructions from 2 months ago. It was an insane thought, but I thought I can just go on like I did before, and then nothing will happen. Well, yeah, something did happen. It turned out to be wrong already at the point where I started to pick it up. So I knit a bit in, well, this is not the least intricate lace detail that I've ever knit, but you know, it's not terrible to think back a few rows. But I basically knit on like 5 rows and then unknit 5 rows, and I'm now in the process of knitting those 5 rows again, and I'm getting close to the sleeve separation, but I'm not quite there yet. But I do love what this pattern is looking like, and the yarn is lovely as well. It is amazing. It's Lily Pond Yarns. I think they used to have a podcast, but I'm not sure they still have. I think they have removed some of their videos, so they may have stopped podcasting. I'm not sure what's going on there, but they do have an Etsy shop and they are active on Instagram, so I still follow them there. And they made this amazing yarn, which is called Peaches and Cream, and I believe it's a sock yarn, but I'm not really sure what type of sock yarn. Anyway, I'm really happy with the colors and with the lace detail. I do think it just looks lovely. So yeah, I'm not really one to try and do cardigans for festivals, but I want to try and see if I can finish this before Edinburgh Yarn Festival, which I'm hoping to attend this year. That is, I failed to get tickets for the festival last week when they went on sale. I was on their website like half an hour after the tickets went live, and they were already sold out. So yeah, I failed to get the tickets. Next time I should try and be there like at the minute and they go for sale, I guess. But nonetheless, my boyfriend and I booked tickets to go to Scotland for the week of Edinburgh Yarn Festival. So we will be in Scotland from the weekend before till the Saturday. So on Saturday we will fly back. So I'm trying to go to the festival either on Thursday or Friday. We haven't really figured out our schedule yet. I won't be in Edinburgh for the full week. We will be traveling through Scotland, and as I'm traveling with my boyfriend, I obviously also want the trip to be enjoyable for him. So it's not going to be a knitting only trip, but because I'm going, there will be knitting on the trip, because yeah, I won't survive a trip without knitting, I guess. But if any of you guys are going to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, please let me know, because I would love to meet up with people that watch this podcast. It would be amazing to see you guys in real life, so please let me know. Also, yeah, I hope that you will also be going on the Thursday or Friday in that case, or that you are in town at one of those nights and maybe we can meet up somewhere else. I don't know, but that would be lovely. Yeah, I think that's everything that I have to share about this cardigan. But yeah, I'm quite happy that it's on the needles again, and actually, well, it's never been off the needles because I have enough needles not to have to worry about that. Also, I don't have that many whips at the same time either. But yeah, I'm happy that there's some progress going on this cardigan. And I think that's all for the knitting content, except that I did not share right in the beginning of the episode what I'm wearing. Today I'm wearing my Fana-inspirert Kjole. So it's a dress, it's knee length, so it's definitely a dress. I often get a lot of comments about this being a sweater, and then people see me standing up behind my desk and they are, oh, yeah, I can see why you're telling us it's not a sweater, because it's a dress. Anyway, yeah, this is knit out of PT2 Rauma yarn, which I purchased slightly over a year ago when I visited Oslo Strikke Festival. So that's a knitting festival in Oslo, Norway. And I knit this dress out of it, and I'm really happy with it. And it's been good for the weather the past week, because you guys, it's actually turned into winter this week. On Tuesday it started to snow, and we sometimes have a bit of snow that doesn't even stick to the ground, so it's like you can see the white flakes and it looks magical, but they don't stay on the ground. But this snow fell on Tuesday, and it was just yesterday evening, which is Friday evening, when it started to melt away. So it's been on the ground for, well, a few days, which has been amazing. Also not so amazing for traffic jams. I believe there's been like over 2,000 kilometers of traffic jam in the Netherlands, which is quite a lot, considering our country. Like, if you take the longest route from one end to the other end of the country, it's only 420 something kilometers. So it's been like 5 times across the country. It's been the amount of traffic jam that we have had on our roads. Luckily I was traveling by train, so I wasn't affected by it as much, but my boyfriend was in one of those traffic jams, and he has to travel like 10 kilometers, and it's been a horrible traffic jam all the way. Whereas I had to travel like 50 kilometers, and I was in a train and on my bike, and I was much faster than he was. That's not usually the case, but this week it was. So, but you guys, I just love snow. Snow is amazing. So there was like 1 to 2 inches of snow, and it just looks so magical. I love it. I don't like traveling through snow though. So cycling in the snow wasn't that much fun. Anyway, that's enough blabber about the weather, I guess. Apart from the knitting, I have also been spending some time on spinning, and this is the yarn from Stranded Dye Works that I've spun a few weeks ago. I think over Christmas holiday? No, somewhat earlier, somewhat before Christmas. So I think in December I must have spun this. So it's a 4-ply 100% BFL and hand dyed by Amy of the Stranded Dye Works company and the Stranded podcast. And yeah, I finally got around to actually finishing the yarn. So I've plied it before, and I've shown you the yarn as plied, but I have been reading the book that I have by Gillian Marino, like a knitter's guide to spinning, and it also says some things about finishing yarns, which I really didn't know was possible. So I knew, of course, that you can soak yarn, and of course I've done that in the past before I started knitting with it, but I wasn't aware of things like snapping and all that kind of stuff. So I tried, had some fun with this yarn, locked myself up in the bathroom to do so, because a lot of these methods for finishing yarn apparently involve a lot of splashing of water around, and with the freezing temperatures that we've had the past week, it was not really an option to do that outside. Also, we have a very tiny balcony, so not really an option to do much splashing around there. So I locked myself up in the bathroom and made a bit of a water ballet there, but yeah, I think the yarn turned out quite relaxed, and it's all ready to go and to spin a hat out of it. And that's not all of the spinning that I've done, because I was working on some yarn last week as well, and for a few weeks already. And this is Tóves Favoritt. Also purchased in Oslo on the knitting festival last year. Yeah, and I finished plying it. So I'm not sure if I had the first ply finished already, but I finished the second ply now. I think I had the first ply finished. Might have already started the second ply. I'm not sure if I had started it last week. Can't really remember, but I finished the second ply and I plied them together, and I'm quite content with how it turned out. I have some 888 meters, so I think that's close to 1,000 yards of yarn, and it's 230 something grams, so I'm quite happy. It's a slightly heavier fingering weight, but it's definitely still fingering weight, and I'm planning to knit a top out of this, because it's definitely not going to be enough to knit me a sweater, but it might just be enough to knit a sleeveless top. And I have 2 sleeveless tops that I've knit out of lace weight yarns, but I think I want to knit one out of a fingering weight. And I never had 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn, because I tend to either buy enough to and try and make a full length sweater, or just enough for a pair of socks. So I never really had 2 skeins of sock yarn, and I have 3 skeins of this now. I must say they did not really turn out all the same. I mean, this one definitely looks less airy than the first 2, but I will try and see how far I get with just the first 2 braids of yarn, and then see if I need a second or not. No, if I need a third one or not. But I will need to finish these, because there's definitely some overplying going on, as you can clearly see from all the twisted tangles going on at the bottom here. And it depends a bit. This one, see, this must have been the first one then. This one turned out pretty much okay, and this one is a bit messier as well, but not quite as bad as the last one. So the last one might sound like my progress in plying has been getting worse over time, but I actually think it's the making of the plies that has improved over time. So when I ply yarn, it's obviously on the bobbin already, but part that you've spun first of the single ply ends up getting plied last, because that's just how it works. All the newer plied yarn is on top of the old one, and you start working from the outside to the inside, because there's no way to center pull from such a bobbin as I have on my spinning wheel. So anyway, I'm hoping this will turn out to something usable. And then there's been one more project that I've picked up, and definitely needed some love. It has not received much love, but it is my Sophie's Universe blanket. Well, it's not quite a blanket yet, but it's getting there. I mean, it's about the size of my head, I think. Maybe slightly larger already than my head. So it's getting there. Yeah, that's the definition of a blanket. It should be larger than your head. Okay, anyway. So I have only put in the green row at the edge that you can see here. But this is a bit of leftover from my other blanket that I had finished before last podcast episode. So it's been 2 weeks since I finished it. But yeah, the blanket left me with quite a few leftovers of sock yarn, so I can put them in this blanket. I might also put in the leftover bits of the socks that I finished for my boyfriend. I'm not quite sure if I'll do that, because it has camel in it, and I'm pretty sure that it will hold up, because there's still nylon content and enough of the wool content to, be similar enough to all the yarns that are in here. And I have not really been fussy about this blanket, because there's some merino nylons, there's some generic wool nylons. I believe there's also a BFL nylon in here. Yeah, so I have not been all that fussy about it, and there's been 75-25s and 80-20s. That's all fine, but somehow the camel just kind of makes me feel like I'm not so sure if I want to put it in this blanket. Anyway, so, but this is back on the needles, and I actually want to continue working on it right after this podcast episode is recorded. So I'm pretty sure that eventually it will get done, but I'm not even past like clue 4, I believe. So yeah, the progress has been going a bit slow. But I have plenty of sock yarn left over now, so I should be able to grow the blanket a bit. And also, I have so many sock yarn leftovers now that I think that once I've used all of the colors, I might start putting some of the older bits back in the blanket at this point. Because it would be a bit silly, for instance, for the color that I've used in the center, like it's not even a meter of yarn, I believe. And yeah, it will be a bit sad if that's just all of that color that's going into this blanket, and to just leave the skeins untouched for the rest. So yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing for now. I believe that's all of the content that I have for you. So thank you so much for joining me this week. It really means a lot that you take some time out of your day to spend it with me. And yeah, I hope to hear if some of you guys are also going to Edinburgh, or maybe if you have an extra ticket for the Thursday or Friday. I mean, I would be willing to go. I don't think many people will have purchased more tickets than they actually need, but you know, you never know. So, but just keep me in mind if you do, or let me know at what time you plan to queue in the line for tickets otherwise. Anyway, so I think that's it for this week, and I hope to see you again next week. So, bye!